The door to the C-47 slammed shut with a metal clang, sealing the paratroopers of Easy Company into the belly of the bird. It was September 17th, 1944. The sky outside was clear, the kind of blue that made you believe in peace, but the men inside were bound for war. Shifty Powers sat with his back against the cold fuselage, gum in his mouth, loose in his shoulders. Second time around, he thought, just another day on the job site. Across from him, one of the boys had his nose in a paperback. Shifty couldn't remember the title, something about a jump in Africa. Didn't matter. The weather was perfect. No night jump this time. No hedgerows, no flak. Just Holland in autumn. Don Malarkey watched the others in the stick. The faces were familiar, older somehow since Normandy. They wore the look of men who had already met death once and weren't eager for a second dance, but they'd go just the same. He glanced out the round window. Below them, thousands of parachutes would soon bloom over the fields, jellyfish floating in the boat basin of memory. Up in another bird, Colonel Sink and Lieutenant Colonel Chase were gripping their seats. Flak had started. German 88s fired blindly toward the approaching formation. A piece of wing tore from Sink's plane. He turned to the others and said, "Well, there goes the wing, as if it were a lawn chair blowing off a porch." No one laughed. Both men would survive the drop, rally their units and move on. But not everyone would be so lucky. Inside Babe Heffron's plane, tension was thick. The tail rocked from distant bursts. Somewhere up front, the crew chief walked the aisle like a preacher before battle. "You boys are a credit to the country," he said. "I wish I could do what you do." A few men passed him folded notes, final messages, scribbled in pencil. Babe handed over nothing. He had already said what needed saying to the girl in South Philly who'd sent the Dear John. The pilot, a Jersey kid, came back to shake hands. "Don't worry," he told them. "I'll drop you right where you belong." Malarkey leaned toward Bill Guarnere, who had been watching the younger guys cutting up, laughing a little too loud. "You guys doing all right?" Bill asked, standing tall. He paused. "Just remember, the Krauts are down there waiting for us." The laughter stopped. Webster sat near the door, pretending to read but feeling every vibration in his bones. As they passed over the French coast, past ruined villages and flooded farmland, he knew they were crossing into enemy country. A canal below marked the line, the Albert Canal, guarded by British armor and shrouded in white smoke. They waved up at the paratroopers. The welcome party was over. "Stand up and hook up." The cry went out like a fire alarm. Legs forward, lines hooked, minds bracing for whatever would come. Heffron's plane jolted as it neared the zone. A windmill on the horizon spat flak, and the P-38 escorts peeled off, dived, and turned the windmill to ash. The air filled with smoke and falling timber. Shifty stood in line. No wind, no swinging, no fear. Just the solid comfort of routine. Bill Guarnere muttered something under his breath. A prayer, maybe a curse. Green light. 1,200 feet above the Netherlands, the doors opened. Sunlight poured in. The first man leapt, then the next, and then all hell followed. Paratroopers of the 506 tumbled into open sky, not under cover of darkness, not into a storm of tracers like in France. This was different. It was daylight. It was clear. It was beautiful. Almost like the war was over. Almost. The sky was alive with parachutes. Thousands of green canopies drifted over the Dutch countryside like a slow-motion wave, rising from the transport planes above and settling toward the earth below. It should have looked like war, but to David Webster, it looked like a painting. His legs kicked in open air. His risers twisted, jerking his head down, chin pressed hard to his rifle case. Poor exit, badly packed chute. He didn't care. He was out of the plane, alive. That was enough. The canopy opened clean despite the spin. He felt the tension fade as the lines straightened. The wind was light. The sun was warm. Beneath him stretched a wide, soft brown-green field, smooth as an English polo ground. No trees, no fences, no enemy fire. Just earth. He looked down and laughed once. Then he did something no paratrooper was supposed to do. He landed on his feet. No roll, no brace. Just a smooth, upright touchdown like he'd stepped off a curb. Sinful, he thought. Against orders, against training, against every warning ever shouted in jump school. But what the hell? It had been a perfect jump. He stood there for a moment in the silence, dust puffing around his boots, parachute fluttering to the ground behind him like a discarded cape. Webster slipped free of his harness and crouched low. In the distance, white smoke curled from a pine grove. Orange smoke, too, Easy Company's signal. He slung his rifle and moved fast, eyes darting across the field. Don Malarkey landed nearby, low and hard, just missing a crate of falling gear. "It's raining damn helmets," he muttered, dodging a bundle that thudded into the dirt. He took one look at Webster and grinned. "Show off." Webster smirked, then ducked as a glider screamed overhead. It was trailing smoke. Two others had collided mid-air. Malarkey saw it too, dropping in a crumpled mass toward a grove of trees. The impact didn't echo. It just stopped. Babe Heffron hit the ground hard, cut loose, and started running. Gear was still falling, troopers darting across the field to assemble. In the chaos, a voice cried out, "Help me, Heffron, please, my leg is broken." Babe froze. The voice was familiar. He turned and saw the trooper crumpled in the grass, face twisted in pain. "Wingett," Babe called out, already moving toward him. "Yeah, it's my damn ankle again," Billy Wingett hissed, clutching his boot. "Same one from Normandy. Snapped it bad." Babe dropped to his knees beside him. "Christ, Billy, you've got the worst luck in the regiment." He tried to brace the leg with a rifle, then gave up and handed it to Wingett as a makeshift crutch. "We'll get you to the road. Come on." He half-carried, half-dragged Wingett across the field, gear crashing all around them like a storm. Shells whined overhead, distant but not far enough. Lieutenant Peacock's voice barked through the haze. "Heffron, join your platoon." Babe ignored him, got Wingett to the roadside, where medics were starting to gather the wounded. "Be glad for the break," Babe muttered as he helped him down. $1 million wound. You're going home." Back in the field, Shifty Powers pulled off his chute and scanned the horizon. A windmill stood tall behind a grove of trees, church spire rising behind it, picture perfect, peaceful, almost. He spotted the orange smoke and jogged toward it. Guarnere landed already moving, barking orders, hauling a man to his feet. "You're not sightseeing, move." A glider was burning in the distance. A C-47 wreck lay in pieces, half submerged in a drainage ditch. Medics rushed toward it, dragging bodies, pulling wounded from the debris. The heat on the field was rising fast, gear clanked, men shouted. Shells occasionally cracked overhead, distant but close enough to feel. Webster moved fast. His chute lay behind him in a heap. He'd wanted a piece of silk, always did, but another airburst sent him sprinting. The blast was closer this time. He passed 3 corpses tangled in canopies, 2 troopers, 1 crew chief, blood on his temple. Webster stopped. Recognition hit hard. Memory. The Shepherd's Rest. That night with the jeep and the beer. He stared a moment longer than he should have. Then another shell dropped. Time to go. He made the tree line in a full sprint, heart hammering. Dozens of men lay low among the pines. A passing trooper shouted, "2nd Battalion?" "Don't know," came the reply. Webster pushed farther north past groves and ditches until he saw the familiar silhouettes. Malarkey, Guarnere, Shifty, Babe, Easy Company. Hunkered down along a sandy road, waiting. He dropped beside them, sweat on his face, rifle in hand. "Nice of you to float in," Guarnere muttered. "Didn't float," Webster replied. "Landed standing up." Guarnere raised an eyebrow. "Show off. The planes had done their job. The men were down, and for now, most of them were alive. It was, as they all quietly agreed, their best jump yet. The sun bore down on the Dutch countryside with no mercy, baking the troopers of Easy Company where they lay in ditches and brush along the road. The adrenaline had drained. The thrill of the jump was behind them. Now came the long wait. David Webster adjusted his helmet and wiped sweat from his brow. A K-ration sat half open beside him, untouched. Around him, men murmured or smoked, occasionally peering up the road for orders that never came. The initial chaos had faded, but the unease hadn't. Across the field, a lone figure limped toward him. Billy Wingett. Webster recognized him immediately. They'd served together in the machine gun platoon. Wingett had been pulled after Normandy with a busted ankle. Now he hobbled again, pain etched in his face. "My ankle's gone again," he muttered through clenched teeth. Webster stood, hesitant. "Medic!" he shouted. "Medic!" A Red Cross armband bobbed through a ditch, casual, unhurried. "Keep your shirt on, buddy," the medic said, approaching slowly. Webster gave Wingett a reassuring nod and moved off, rifle slung, eyes scanning the field. A low whine broke the silence, an incoming shell. "Coo-rack!" The blast rocked the earth less than 100 yards away. Webster hit the dirt, heart pounding. Dust rose around him. He didn't wait. He ran for the pine grove. In the trees he found cover and dozens of scattered troopers lying low. Someone passed him at a sprint. "This 2nd Battalion?" Webster called out. "Damn if I know." The reply was flat, almost bored. He kept north through the pines until he spotted familiar faces. Malarkey, Shifty, Guarnere. The squad had formed up beside a bramble-lined ditch. Helmets were off, sleeves rolled up, rifles laid across laps. They looked like farmhands on break. No sign of winters yet, but the men were calm. No panic, no barking, just stillness and waiting. Webster dropped beside them and nodded. The jump had been perfect. The landing smooth, the casualties minimal. A rare thing in this war. And yet, something felt off. Guarnere watched a flight of P-51 seconds scream across the sky. They peeled off one by one and stitched the ground with fire. A plume of black smoke followed. "They got a tank," someone muttered. The planes didn't return. Webster stared at the empty sky. The silence crept back in. The laughter from the plane was gone. The crew chief from memory was gone. The guy with the broken leg was probably on his way to a field hospital by now. He opened his K-ration and took a bite, chewing in silence. The sun climbed higher, turning the air thick and stale. They waited. Somewhere up the road, Winters was moving. Orders would come. The fight would start. But not yet. For now there was heat and silence and the memory of what had fallen from the sky. Dick Winters crouched near the road, eyes narrowed behind the dust-smeared lenses of his helmet liner. He had watched the drop unfold from the sky like a parade, organized, smooth, almost beautiful, almost. Now the beauty was gone. What remained was the drag of time, the chaos of unspoken orders, and the frustration of a wasted hour. The men were scattered along the ditch line and brush, rifles across knees, sweating beneath their gear. Helmets lay beside them, K-rations half-eaten. Some dozed with their backs against trees. Others picked at their boots, muttering about the heat. Winters checked his watch. The march off the drop zone had been slow, too slow. He knew it, and he hated it. Time mattered. Minutes gave the enemy room to breathe, and Easy Company was built to suffocate the enemy, not let him regroup. He moved down the line, checking on squads. Heffron gave him a quiet nod. Guarnere sat with his back against a tree, eyes closed, fingers tapping his thigh like a metronome. Malarkey sipped from his canteen, staring at nothing. A few yards off, Shifty leaned on his rifle and squinted up at the sky. "Beautiful day," he said flatly. "Yeah," Winters replied. "It is." No one spoke much. The adrenaline had drained out of them like a slow bleed. Webster sat cross-legged, scribbling in a tiny notebook. Words weren't coming easy. Farther up the road, someone had rigged a tarp over a burned-out glider, dragging the wounded underneath. The air smelled like scorched cloth and singed grass. The windmill Babe had seen earlier was gone, reduced to rubble. He had watched the P-38 seconds hit it. Now only smoke marked the spot. Winters paced, hands on hips, lips pressed tight. They had landed as a regiment, one of the cleanest jumps on record. No scattered sticks. No lost troopers wandering hedgerows. But the delays were maddening. He spotted a staff sergeant jogging toward him, map case bouncing against his hip. "Orders just in, sir. Objectives confirmed. Column moves north in 30. Winters nodded once. "Pass it to 1st Platoon. And get word to Lipton. I want squads staggered. Cover both sides of the road." "Yes, sir." The runner vanished down the ditch. Winters turned back and looked at his men. They were quiet, hot, ready, in their own way. This wasn't like Normandy. There was no midnight panic. No black skies or scattered gear. No confusion. This time they had dropped together, formed fast, and were now poised like a coiled spring. Still, he could feel it. The lull. The dangerous stillness that came before the hammer fell. Holland was not going to roll over. He walked over to a stump, stepped up, and looked down the line. "All right, boys," he called out. Heads turned. "We've sat long enough. Mount up. We move in 10. No one cheered. No one clapped. They just moved, quietly, efficiently, like veterans who knew the real work was just beginning. Webster closed his notebook. Malarkey stood and rolled his shoulders. Babe tightened his harness. Shifty spit, then slung his rifle. Guarnere cracked his knuckles and muttered, "Finally." They fell into formation, dust rising behind their boots. Winters adjusted his belt and took one last glance at the wide Dutch sky. He thought, it began in daylight. Let's see how it ends. Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment jumped into Holland on September 17, 1944. They expected a quick operation, liberate a few towns, hold key roads, and be out within days. Instead, they were in combat for 72 straight days. It would become their longest continuous engagement of the war.